Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Abbott Elementary star Lisa Ann Walter performs stand-up comedy live at the Bethesda Theater in Bethesda, Maryland on September 17th. She called in to discuss growing up in Silver Spring, Maryland, and why the Hollywood strikes are so important. Thanks so much for joining us on WTOP.
Oh my goodness, it is my pleasure. Are you kidding me? You know, when my publicist said, you're going to talk to WTOP, which is a radio station in DC, I'm like, I know.
I think I know. Well, if you grew up in Montgomery County, you have to know WTOP. So
I sure do. And yes, I do. In fact, I'm trying to remember where the towers are. They're not are they on the way to Wheaton Plaza?
There
University
is
Boulevard.
You're right. There is a tower there. There's a bunch of towers. There's one up in Frederick as well. They're all over. But yeah, I mean, our station is now, it's sort of like Friendship Heights, like right on the line of Chevy Chase and in DC, right there by the Friendship Heights Metro there now.
Oh yeah, you're fancy.
Gotcha. Yeah, but actually just a few blocks up on Wisconsin Avenue, if you go up from our station straight up, you'll be able to see the star of Abbott Elementary doing some stand-up comedy at the Bethesda Theater on September 17th. I think it's going to be like 2 shows, right? Like one at 6 and one at 8:30.
You know what? I think I'm going to add some special just for this show. And for the early show, we'll do a recap of what's happening if the game is still going. I'm a big Commanders fan, or whatever they're going to be called by the time I come do the show. Could be anything. You never know. You never know with the team.
Yeah. Did you grow up watching them at RFK Stadium? You mentioned the football team.
I did not. Unfortunately, I didn't know anybody. We were from Langley Park, and my parents were just lowly. My mom was a teacher. My dad worked for NASA. We didn't know any fancy people. So, back in those days, you had to be a legacy. You had to get them in somebody's will. Like nobody had tickets. So I didn't have any friends that got to go to games. In fact, my first game ever to what was the former name was out here in Los Angeles when they played the Rams. When the first year that the Rams played, I took my son and I sat right behind and I had the time of my life.
Oh,
it was a thrill. I can't even imagine. Like when you tell people out here, for years it was pretty shamefaced. Who's your team? And I'm like, well, I'm from the Washington area. So, but now we have hope. I'm excited.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And you mentioned, like they're back in the day when they played at RFK in the Joe Gibbs glory days, it was like a wait list for those season tickets. And now it's been sad to see, mostly, probably Eagles fans. And I'm just thinking of the Abbott Elementary team, I guess would be Eagles. But yeah, like you see all the other opposing fans flocking down and filling the stadium. It's been embarrassing, but hopefully we'll turn it around. All right.
No, it's true. And 100%, I have to. My secondary team is the Eagles because I went to the Super Bowl to see my girl Cheryl Lee Ralph sing the Lift Their Voice and Sing. So I gotta root for the Eagles in that case. But now I'm Washington 100% of the way.
Oh, Cheryl Lee Ralph is awesome. Awesome. So glad you're all starting to get your flowers, as they say. Well, speaking of flowers, in addition to this show, didn't you earlier this year, you were at the National Cherry Blossom Festival, the parade. You were Grand Marshal. Memories of that really quick. How fun was that?
Oh my gosh. I can't even tell you. First of all, it's the most glorious time of the year. People say, oh, when I'm thinking about going to DC, first thing you say to people is always don't go in the summer. Like you think humid. I don't care if you're from New Orleans. You don't know humid until you come to our neck of the woods. But going in spring is just the most glorious, beautiful vision. And, people welcome me home. Like I really felt like a returning hero. I can't even imagine. And, it's so funny because the people were asking me, have you done, because I did commentating. They were like, oh, you're going to for an hour, you're going to do commentating about the parade. And I'm like, all right, I'll give it a whirl. So they said, well, you've been a broadcaster. I'm acting like it. I'm literally doing what I saw people do like at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade my entire life. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I had such a good time and everybody was so welcoming and it's beautiful, man. I love coming home. I mean, there's really no place like it in the world. It's a beautiful city. The people are incredible. I'm so excited to come home and do stand up. I got a lot of people from high school that are going to come come see the show. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, whether a bunch of family and friends turn up whenever, you play a place like Bethesda Theater. Well, it used to be called Bethesda Blues and Jazz. They recently renamed it to Bethesda Theater, but it's going to be a great hometown crowd. But let's hear. I mean, we've sort of been mentioning it, but let's go a little more into how you grew up around here. So you're born in, I guess, Silver Spring, and your mom was a substitute teacher. So we got a little bit of, Abbott Elementary, a Sicilian substitute teacher, no less. So we got a little Abbott foreshadowing.
She was, in fact, she was a regular school teacher before she did substitute teaching in MoCo. She was a regular old teacher in downtown DC. So I'm, I've got kind of a bona fide of the Melissa Chimenti character from my mom's experience. She was a teacher for everything. She worked, her first job was a one-room schoolhouse in Pennsylvania when my dad was getting his PhD. She taught everything from kindergarten through high school in one room, and they used to let them stay home during the harvest. Like, it was country. And then she totally swung the other direction and started teaching in DC and did that for years, and was the only white teacher in the school. It was really very similar to the Chimenti experience.
Absolutely. Do you remember the name of the school?
Teaching. I don't. I was little. It was like when I was like 4, 5, 6 years old. Yeah. So I don't remember the name, unfortunately. But I know when she came out to substitute teach, she was teaching at Tacoma Park Junior High. I'll tell you that right now.
Awesome. And then, of course, absolutely. So you went to Tacoma Park Junior High, and then, of course, you graduated from Montgomery Blair High in 79. Did you act in any high school plays, or I want to know, did you get bit by the bug of any performance art stuff while at high school at Blair?
Go Blazers. Yes, Jason, I did. In fact, I was in my first year, I did the musical, which was The Music Man. And then I did their non-musical plays, 10 Nights in a Bar Room. I can tell you every single one. My Fair Lady. And then I got Mono in my senior year. Oh, no, that's right. I didn't do My Fair Lady. That was Mono. My junior year, we did Fiddler on the Roof. And I played Yenta and brought the house down. I got a standing ovation. I think that was the show that made me say, I want to do this my whole life. I want to make people feel. I want to make them laugh and cry. And the feeling of getting that sort of response was what I wanted. It wasn't the ovation. I mean, that was great. And I'm going to tell you something. That stage, that Montgomery Blair, the old school, not the new one now, but the old one on Wayne Avenue, had the widest proscenium stage in the DMC, except for the Kennedy Center. When they built the Kennedy Center, that became the widest stage. But until they built the Kennedy Center, we had the widest stage. It was a beautiful theater. And I learned later that it had fell into disrepair. And I actually wrote this really long letter to the council, to the county council, to say, please don't destroy that theater. Like, I'll raise money to rebuild that thing. That should be used in the community. It's just sad. There's like weeds growing in it. I don't know if they've torn it down since. I hope they didn't.
Well, yeah, I don't know, but that's a good factoid about before the Kennedy Center, the widest proscenium stage. That's a good trivia there, folks, for our local listeners. Well, real quick, we also got to touch on that you got your theater degree in college at Catholic in DC, Catholic U in '83, another local connection. Just kind of like what you did at the high school, what you just mentioned, the plays you acted at in high school. Like what were some of the big productions you were in while at Catholic?
Well, Catholic I went to purposely because they had such a prestigious theater department, one of the best in the country. That's not actually a theater school like Juilliard, right? So I chose it. I went down by myself on the brand new subway back when I was in high school to visit the school, and it was a beautiful spring day. And I'm sitting there walking past the National Cathedral on my way to the drama department, and I chose. I had been offered a full senatorial scholarship because I was real political growing up. My family was, and I was precinct captain for Jimmy Carter's campaign. I went to the inauguration at the White House. I had some really great times in DC. Did a lot of marches, the big ERA marches. By the way, still marching for it. Hell, let's get on that, Congress. But so I was offered a senatorial scholarship to University of Maryland. but they just didn't have the theater department that Catholic did. So I took on the expense, which in those days I think might have been $4,800 a year was tuition.
Not nearly
I think
as
it went up to,
ridiculous as it is now.
can you even? So I said, no, I want to go here. And I got some scholarships and some grants, and I paid for it myself because I didn't get any, my family, as I said, didn't have money. So I took on the expense and went there and waited tables, 5 days a week. And I think I was at the Bethesda Country Club for a while I was there. And then a couple of other Cafe Splendide on DuPont Circle, La Brasserie down in, for people that remember back in the day, it was like the place to go in the 80s, down next to the American Cafe, near the train station, right down on Massachusetts Avenue, I think. Yeah, I think that's where we were, Mass Ave. But anyway, I waited tables. I went to Catholic. We did all sorts of shows. You did what you do, black box theater, loose ends, and stage door. That was the first show that they did that had more women. Because, in plays, it's really difficult. They use mostly men. So for girls to get any stage time, it's crazy. But, I did the musicals. And, here's a weird story about Catholic. I went and auditioned for the actor Edward Norton, was directing a movie.
Oh,
the one
wow.
he did with Ned Stiller. And I went and auditioned for him. And he looked at my resume and he goes, oh, you went to Catholic? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, I did a play there. And I looked at him like, I know his story because I knew that he was from Columbia, Maryland. His family they were like part of the Rouse family or something. They were big deals. And I was like, you went to Catholic? And he goes, no, I just did a play there when I was a kid. And he goes, you probably never heard of it. And I looked at him, I went, wait a minute. Was it a play that they were trying out at Catholic and then they brought up to Broadway called Werewolf? And he goes, oh my God, how did you know that? And I said, because you were the little kid in it. I ran sound my freshman year, and I actually drove you home to Columbia twice because my dad lived out that way.
Wait, you drove Ed Norton when he was a kid back to Columbia, which was, of course, designed by his grandfather, James Rouse, with Columbia. But yes, I mean, that seriously. So you remember, can you picture his little kid face in the rearview mirror of your car? Like you can still envision it.
Yeah, well, back in those days, people didn't put kids in the back. They just sat right up front.
Come on, Ed.
Little kids rode shotgun back then.
Yeah, airbags aside, little Eddie. But you're riding up front shotgun.
You're riding in my 1970 Chevrolet Caprice Classic. Good luck. Yes, he was absolutely adorable, and he was the little kid in this play about a town, chasing werewolves. Oh my God, it was the craziest thing. We sat there, I could not believe it. And then he wanted me to audition for a bigger role, and I knew what the role was and that I wasn't going to get it because people had to be mean to her, and I'm too likable. So I was like, I'm never going to get this role. But anyway, it was a really fun memory and some wild stuff in those days, man.
Wow.
We had a good time.
Yeah, we have your driving skills to thank because if you were a little more reckless behind the wheel, we might not have ever got Fight Club or any of that other good stuff. Wow, that's great. Thanks for taking care of Ed for
100%.
us.
You're welcome.
Great. You were his original Tyler Durden. So then,
exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. So then how do you make the leap, to Hollywood? Like, I know you spent 5 years doing stand-up, which you're still doing with this show the next couple weeks from now. But yeah, so like, I know you did stand-up and then there was like early TV shows like My Wildest Dreams on Fox and Life's Work on ABC. There were some early movies, Whoopi Goldberg's Eddie, the basketball movie, and The Parent Trap. Yeah, where I think you were the nanny to Lindsay Lohan and Dennis Quaid and all that stuff. But yeah, just remind us how you made that leap from these DC memories you're talking about to actually landing these screen roles.
So once I graduated Catholic, I was doing like the summer program with Arena Stage, and we were doing Streetcar Named Desire. I wound up doing it at Silver Spring Stage and got the best reviews I think I've ever received in my life. It was like my mother wrote them. I had been trained so well at Catholic and at Arena that I was really comfortable in this role. And I met on the day of the first read-through, he was cast outside of the audition process, who became my boyfriend and then my husband. He held the door open for me and said, "Oh, are you in the play?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm Stella." He said, "Oh, I'm your husband." And then that became fact. That was my husband, Sam. And we dated for a while, lived together. I did shows at Playwrights Theater, New Playwrights, and Gala Hispanic, and all these DC theaters. And then we went up to Cape Cod, where we saved money for a year. Lived on. That's where I got my green card, by the way. Setting up. I was helping John Cusack and the director of this movie, Savage Steve Holland. I just waited tables and they fell in love with me. We were in some restaurant where we dressed up in costume, and I got my SAG card because they knew me, and I went and did background work on their movie. And after that, we moved to New York. I was like, I'm going to go be. I never thought I was going to be a movie or a TV actor. I just thought I was going to work in a really great repertory company like Reno or the Guthrie. So we moved to New York, and I was always afraid to go and audition. I got pregnant almost immediately and had a baby. And after I made a human being, I was no longer afraid. And a girlfriend that went to Catholic with me, my best friend from Catholic, Nora Lynch, had been doing stand-up because it was the dawn of the comedy boom. She said, if any of us should be doing this, it should be you. And because I was the only person as young as we were, I mean, I was right out of college, having made a baby, I went on stage and I started talking about being a mother and being married. And it was a very unusual experience for stand-up. And I got really popular really quickly. I started headlining within about a year and a half. Within 6 months of starting stand-up, I was doing it on TV on It's Showtime at the Apollo and Killing. And I did that for actually 7 years, all over the country. And I was opening for a soap opera star named Walt Willey, played Jackson Montgomery on All My Children. And he had a huge fan base of women. So I was his opening act. I would do about an hour. And after a couple of years of that, I had honed the act to where it was real character, the housewife from hell. And I was given a shot to star in TV shows. So when I came to LA, it was as a TV star with my own show, creating it and starring in it. And that was the first show on Fox, and then became Life's Work on ABC, which was a monster hit. Did not go very long because we got a new president at the network. And they like to get rid of the stuff that's existing and bring their own stuff in, unfortunately. So that didn't go further, but a bunch of movies did, as you mentioned. And kind of that's how it happened. I created unscripted series like Dance Your Ass Off based on my experience doing the movie Shall We Dance with Richard Gere and J-Lo. They wanted me to be heavy. I was eating 10,000 calories a day and still couldn't gain weight because of dancing so much. And I looked at the experience, having fought, trying to lose 10 pounds my whole life, and said, why do we have all these TV shows where people scream at people to lose weight? Like, women love to dance. Let's just do a dance show, a dance weight loss show. So that's what I created, and that ran on Oxygen and internationally and was a monster hit. And then I, did a whole bunch of other stuff. I actually had a radio show while my twins, I have identical twins born on the same day as the twins in The Parent Trap, weirdly, October 11th. And when they were in high school, I said, I got to stick around. I can't go in, because I was their, caretaker parent. So I did a radio show for about 3 years, and then started acting again and got the little show called Abbott Elementary, and been doing that and absolutely loving it. And so I've been doing stand-up here and there throughout all these years. But raising kids is time consuming. You don't want to be away from them more than you have to be. So now they're all grown, and I'm like, I'm going to do this again. So I've been back out and having a blast. I mean, all over the country. I've been to Maryland once, but it was out near Baltimore. And so this is the first time, listen to my accent come out.
Baltimore.
Talking about coming home. Yeah. So this is my first time playing my old stomping grounds, and I'm super excited to be there.
That's awesome. And I know before we run, you've been generous with your time, and I know we're sort of limited to what we can talk about with Abbott Elementary because of the strikes and everything. But is there a way to
Yeah.
at least get a good WTOP soundbite for me? Like, if we can't discuss like the storylines or whatever, but like, can we at least dish on like your talented co-stars? Because that's what the SAG strike's about, and the writer's strike. But like, Keita Brunson, the genius of her, or Cheryl Lee Ralph, or Janelle James, Tyler Williams James, Chris Perfetti. Like, it's such a deep cast.
Yeah, sure. I will say this: it is an incredibly deep bench of talent on both the acting and the writer side, and everybody who plays the kids on the show. I mean, for people who are fans of Abbott, the show isn't the show without those kids. And what one of the geniuses of our show and casting department as well is finding those pieces of talent that people aren't familiar with, like Zach Fox, who plays Tariq on the shows, Quinta's, old boyfriend, ne'er-do-well boyfriend. Like, American public had never heard of Janelle, and she was a comic that Quinta knew. But, every department does an incredible job on that show. And what I will say is that they are all incredible stalwart unionists. And we are all on the side of fighting for, not us so much, not the names, but the people that are in the background, the people that are the day players, people that can't negotiate a contract. And just like everything else in America, it's really just about getting a little bit of the share of these enormous record billion dollar profits that the streaming services are seeing, so that people can afford to live. It's expensive to live, as people in DC know. Any major city, forget about it. You pay your rent, and there goes 2/3 of your nut for the month.
Yeah.
So that's really all it is just trying to help people out to take care of their bills. And by the way, we all cannot wait to get back to work. I miss Cheryl so much. She's truly one of my best friends. I've been lucky in my career to take away a few friends from projects. Elaine Hendricks from The Parent Trap, who played Meredith. She's my best friend in the entire world. And now Cheryl, and I miss her. We don't get to see each other. What's it like when you don't check in with your best friend every day? It hurts. So let's get this strike settled so I can go back and see my friends. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Because let's see, I guess the last season, season 2, it started on September 21st. So season 3, if all this hadn't happened, would have been coming out probably in the next couple weeks. But when were you supposed to start? When were you supposed to start film? When were you supposed to start filming? Like earlier in the summer?
We were supposed to start. We were supposed to start mid-July. It was literally just a couple weeks after the negotiations ended, and we didn't have a deal. But even if we had, the writers were still out, and they
Right.
did not, write in advance or anything, because they honored the strike. I mean, Quinta really is. She's very much of a stalwart, supporter of the union. And she wasn't going to write when they were supposed to be out, when they were supposed to be on strike. So whenever it is that they clear their strike up, which, who knows when that's going to happen, it'll be about 2 months until we get to start. And one of the things Quinta was great at, I wanted to say this, is she created a show that generations can watch together.
Right.
Which is one of the great things about it. The people come up and tell us, I watch with my parents, or I watch with my grandparents, or my kids and I all watch together. And it was her absolute intention to do that. That she saw that there was not a show that was out there that was not corny. People, grown-ups could watch it and not feel like it was a corny kid show, but kids loved it too. So having it start in September was one of the ways that she did a throwback to the old TV, when there used to be a TV season. And you couldn't wait to watch every week to see what was going to happen with Janine and Gregory, right?
Yeah.
So that is her intention. We all can't wait to get back and do it. And honestly, it would be easy to solve. The people in charge of the corporations, not the individual producers or anything, they're us. They're creative. They work with us. But the corporations just have to be willing to give up a fraction of what they give to the shareholders. And honestly, they're making plenty. They got it to share. If you do the math, and I have, because I'm big, I work the negotiation team in the union. It's really something like less than 1%. Less than 1% of their revenue could end all of this for both the writers and the actors.
Yes, I hope you all can, bring this strike to an end soon, because all of our WTOP listeners want to see season 3 of Abbott Elementary whenever it's back. But in the meantime, you can still see Lisa Ann Walter at Bethesda Theater, her hometown theater, on September 17th. 2 shows, 6 and 8:30 in Bethesda. So get your tickets now. And thank you so much for taking so much time with us today.
Thank you, Jason. Take care.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time.